All right, well, we'll get started. It's 10 o'clock. My name is Tony DeLeonibus, and I'm a consultant with Fixed Performance. The title of today's call is pre-writes, and specifically what we're going to be talking about is the pre-write process in our service lane and being prepared for the customer when they arrive for their service appointments. Every DMS, doesn't matter what you're on, ADP, Reynolds, AutoSoft, all have a pre-write process where the service appointments can be printed out on usually a soft copy, so it's financially sound. You don't use up too much of your RO paper, but a pre-written copy of the appointment identifying the customer, the vehicle, the date and time of the appointment, and what it's scheduled for, so where you can print out the day's reservations and be prepared for your customer. Of course, the first step preceding a proper pre-write process would be to have your scheduling system operating in a sound fashion and making sure that your reservations are staggered throughout the day and allow the advisors enough time to properly attend to each client as they arrive. I'm going to share with you today a process that we've developed at Fixed Performance that we've found to be very, very effective in increasing hours per RO and overall customer satisfaction. And it's going to be very specific, and there are some variables to the process, but all in all, it's a pretty straightforward process, and I think everyone's going to like it. So first off, we're going to identify the 3 points of sale that we have in service sales. This is a process that we use sort of on our end when we go into the dealership to quote-unquote diagnose an issue in the service sales process if we have, say, low customer pay hours per RO. So if we take the service sales process and dissect it, everything falls into 3 categories: prime item, captive sale, and additional service request. So if we look at our prime item, that would be specifically whatever the customer is coming in for. And that's what they've called us to address, whether that be an order, whatever item available. In other words, it is what it is. Point of sale. Our second point of sale is referred to as the captive sale. The captive sale is the root word there, captive. We have a captive audience. The customer is in front of us. They've come into our dealership, come to our service drive, or if we don't have a service drive, they've come up to the service desk. If anybody isn't doing a walk-around process right now, then of course a best practice is to be doing a walk-around process. Is based on maintenance regulations and the result of the walk-around. So let's say the customer comes in and typical average, drive into a service drive, get out of the car, walk up to the service desk, and your service advisor says, "Hi, how are you? How can we help you?" "I'm bringing my car in for an oil change." "Did you have an appointment?" yes, I did, or no, I didn't. Then we ruffle through the computer system and try to find their appointment and ask them what their last name was and who did they talk to on the phone, and a myriad of other examples of how we appear to be unprepared for their visit. Next, we would perform a walk-around and address any maintenance needs that the customer has and attempt to sell those services and add them to the RO. Now, that's typical average. What our proposition is in the process is to have these pre-writes ready, so whenever the customer arrives in the driveway or walks to the service counter, we can immediately go to our pre-write stack and pull out all of their information. Before I get too detailed on that, I just want to circle back and address the third point of sale, which is additional service requests. Now, if anybody in your dealership does not have a multi-point inspection process in place by now, I hope you're aware that you're behind the industry average. Just about every dealership that we see has a multi-point inspection process in place, and if you don't have one, you're certainly missing out on a lot of opportunities and likely doing yourself and, more importantly, your customers a disservice by not keeping them apprised of any maintenance or repair needs that their vehicle has. Remember, our duty is to inform and educate our customers about their vehicle's needs. Now, if we circle back to the pre-write process, average, walk into a dealership, tell the service consultant your name, they fumble around, have trouble finding the appointment, ask a few questions, not making the customer feel important. If we had everything prepared, let's say with the pre-write, and we're able to pull it out immediately, yes, Mr. I see we have your reservation all ready to go. It looks like we had you scheduled. I want you to know that our service manager reviews all of our appointments for the following day and makes recommendations based upon your vehicle's mileage, age, and history. The service manager recommends that wanted to make sure that you knew that the car was due for your appointment. Now, the process here is all the appointments would be in the DMS. The service manager or a designated person would review all of the pre-writes the night before. It doesn't have to be at nighttime. It could be in the afternoon, but once we have all of our reservations scheduled for the following day, print the pre-writes. Now, it's a selection for all of the DMS services to have the service history printed right on the pre-write. The more information we can have in front of us when we are consulting the customer, put the car into the service lane, the more prepared we are, and the perception to the customer is that we care. And everybody knows, and if you don't know, I'll repeat it, that any purchase is an emotional transaction. People purchase items and services based on emotion. When we take our car into a dealership, a lot of times our customers are on defense mode. They feel like they're going to be taken advantage of, they're going to be forgotten about, and they do not feel important. Having a prepared document with their information, their reservation, and a service manager recommendation greatly increases their perception of how we feel about them and our caring towards them. which will translate to increased sales. So back to the process. So today is Tuesday. Let's say this afternoon we're going to print off all of our pre-writes for Wednesday. And we suggest having a sheet or a half sheet with a word track on it, and we use just a regular Word doc. And for instance, the word track at the top would be Dave, our service manager, reviews every client's reservation prior to their arrival. Based upon your vehicle's mileage, age, and maintenance records, the service manager recommends the following maintenance be performed to your vehicle. And a few check boxes, and these are items that are going to come off of our maintenance menu mostly. Minor service, intermediate service, major, whether that be a 6K, a 5K, 10, 15, 30, 60. Four-wheel alignment, two-wheel alignment, induction service, brake fluid service, coolant system service, transmission system service, and generally have another line for other, and then a little small section for notes. So when the service manager or the person reviewing the pre-writes, when they look at history real quick, they can determine roughly about what the mileage is going to be of the vehicle's visit and make a recommendation based upon the history and the mileage. As a service manager, whenever I was doing this process, I would put in there as well customer's first visit since purchase, or welcome back, or if I noticed that they had a large repair during the prior visit, ask about that, because again, any information that we create, that we bring up with the client, is going to increase our level of personalized service. And personalized service makes our customers feel important, which means they're going to trust us with their vehicle, which will equate to increasing our sales. So let's say we have this pre-write process in place, and every day we print the pre-writes. The service manager goes through all the pre-writes and attaches a service manager recommendation sheet to each one. Whenever the customer is greeted, the advisor would address the prime item, whatever they come in for, first and foremost, and then inform the client that we're going to do a quick walk around. Would they like to join us? Can they please help us? And once we get them back to our counter, we can grab our pre-write from the stack and review the service manager recommendations. Now, right here, what we've found is that the fact that the service manager reviews all of the reservations and each client's appointment and history carries a lot of weight with the customer. Think of any dealership. Who is doing this? No one. The service manager rarely takes time to review every service appointment. Now, the process only takes a few minutes to go through, and the result is huge with the customers. Now, this is our captive sale. So generally speaking, when we break down the service sales process, we have the prime item, again, the captive sale, and the additional service request. By bringing up these services at the time of captive sale, during walk around, at write-up, we're going to increase our hours per RO. It's just a fact. And when these services are presented to the customer, they don't have to be sold in a hard manner way. They can be sold in a fashion where the service consultant says, yes, the vehicle is due for a 60,000-mile service and a brake fluid service. Is that something you'd like us to do today? Now, the natural next question or the first thing out of the customer's mouth is going to be, how much does it cost? Well, that's an appropriate question, and that's an appropriate question to answer. And that's not selling, that's answering a question. So now what we've done is taken our service recommendations from a sale or an attempted sale to informing and educating and caring about the customer and their vehicle. It's small and it's psychological, but it's very effective. Now, after the recommendations have been made, and if anybody has worked with fixed performance, you know that what we care about and what we teach is that the customer knows, not whether we sell it or not. The sales will come if the customer is informed. After the captive sale is presented, the service manager recommendations, we would document on the RO what we've sold, obviously. If we've sold, let's say, a 15,000-mile service, an intermediate service, and a brake fluid flush, we would document that. If the customer declines the service, we would also document that. And I've seen many different variations of how to document that in a non-negative fashion, not necessarily the words customer declined service, but customer postponed or recommended services not performed this visit, something along those lines. But if something is documented for each line, this would allow the service manager to review the ROs the following day and look for, real quick, thumbing through the ROs, look at the service manager recommendation page, and then looking at the hard copy RO to see if there's a corresponding line for said service manager recommendation. So in other words, we would have, for every service manager recommendation, there must be a corresponding line on the hard copy RO, either the sold service or the declined service. And this is an auditing function for us as service managers to make sure that the service consultants are presenting the recommended services. Now, as we all know, it only takes a few times working with a service consultant, if they're non-compliant, calling them into the office and asking them what happened with the visit, this, that, the other, before they become compliant. And the next step in the service sales process would be the additional request based upon the multi-point inspection process. And again, with the multi-point inspection process, for every item identified by the technician, there should be a line in the RO, either the sold service or the declined service. So again, for auditing purposes, the following day when the service manager reviews ROs, he can go through, look at the prime item, again, not controllable, look at the captive sale portion, the pre-write, and the service manager recommendation to see if there's a corresponding line for what he suggested. And lastly, look at the multi-point inspection sheet for any technician recommendations and see if there's a corresponding line on the customer invoice. And this is sort of a way where we can quickly take a look at the processes that our advisors are doing and make sure that they're uniform and that our clients are being addressed in the same manner no matter who they face or who they come into. Too often when customers come into a dealership, depending on who they see, which service consultant they see, they're going to get recommended a different service, a different price, and it's not process driven. It's sort of reckless abandon. And we always have a strong service writer and a weak service writer, and we can do the math on that and work backwards and find out just how much money we lose if the client walks up to the wrong service advisor. So this is a good process to put into place to ensure uniformity across the board with your service consultants and achieve maximum results in increasing hours per RO in a very, very quick fashion. The results we've seen with dealers that we put the pre-write process and service manager recommendation, sometimes it's an overnight experience between 0.8, 0.9 hours per RO to 1.2, 1.4, 1.6 hours per RO. So if you're struggling in hours per RO, consider this process and implementation as soon as possible, and do yourself a favor and your customers a favor. I'm going to, Mike, if you want to open the lines up, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to address them and discuss anything further with anybody. So let's go ahead and open it up.
Well, if there's no questions, I want to thank everybody for attending today, and we'll see you all next week. And thank you, Tony, once again for leading the call for us today.
You're very welcome, and thank everybody. Good luck and good selling.